Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, and I'm joined, as I often am, by Scott Coleman. Scott, the Player Capsule Series rolls along with the one guy on the roster who actually hit to their normal level last season.
Hello, Brad. I was literally going to say that.
Sorry, I bumped you. That was not planned.
We do a lot of podcasts, but sometimes you'll say something, and then you're like, and Scott, what do you think? And I go, damn it, that was literally what I was going to say. We do not.
We're off to a rousing start here. This is going to be a good show, I think.
That's right. We do not do the ESPN first take, just scream at the other viewpoint, no matter what. But yeah, I mean, if I told you a calendar year ago today, Brad, that after the incredible 2023 season, that Marcell Ozuna would be basically the only player for the Braves offensively who would surpass expectations and or stay healthy all year. I mean, you wouldn't have believed me. You would have said, there's no way, Scott. This was a historic offense. There's no way that they get down years from Riley and Olsen and Harris and Acuna and all these. And I would have said, buddy, you're in for a rough couple of months, because the one truly bright spot last year was Marcell Ozuna, and it'll be fun to kind of reflect on his season as a whole.
Yes, it will. One regular in the Braves lineup had an OPS over 800, and Marcell was over 900. So he was in a league of his own compared to everybody else a season ago. If you're just finding the podcast for the first time, first of all, welcome to Hammer Territory. We cover the Braves all year round. We are part of the Foul Territory Network. Please subscribe to the show. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video as you are watching it as well, and help us to spread the word about the podcast. But this is one of our player capsules. It'll be focused on Marcell Ozuna, and I guess by proxy, the DH position for the Braves, because he is their full-time DH. That is what he is. It's a situation that most teams don't have, honestly. Most teams don't have a everyday DH in the modern game. The team is used as a rotational position sometimes. They might have a guy to put there, but you have to be really, really, really good at hitting to be worth being a full-time DH. And Marcell Ozuna has been for quite some time. So we alluded to it. He was really, truly awesome last year. I forgot this until we prepped this podcast, but Marcell finished fourth in MVP voting last year in the National League. Like, that's how good he was. If you guys people have forgotten that, he was fourth MVP voting. Again, as a full-time DH, that's hard to do. Unless you're Shohei Ohtani and you're an actual alien and you win the MVP award. Really impressive stuff. So,
yeah,
I mean, go ahead.
Marcell, he had a legitimate chance at the Triple Crown if
he was in
it
until the end.
Yes, if it wasn't for that Ohtani guy who's pretty good at baseball himself, there was a legitimate chance. Like, I think as late as like mid-August, we were looking at the leaderboards and doing podcasts, and it's like, holy crap, Brad. He leads in homers, he's one back in RBI, and he's 4 batting average points behind for the Triple Crown. And obviously, he tailed off a bit towards the end of the season and wasn't able to get the Triple Crown. But this was just such an impressive season. And really, on the whole, it was better than what he did in 2023, which was very, very good in and of itself.
Yeah, he's going into, this is actually going to be his 6th season with the Braves, which is hard to believe, to be honest. Wow. There's a lot that's happened, as we'll kind of briefly get into. Of course, he had that 2-year dip in production, off-field stuff. It was kind of a mess for 2 years, and it's shocking that we're back here to where he was a no-brainer club option pickup for the Braves. That's how good he's been. It's been a wild ride for Marcell Ozuna. But doing kind of a little bit more of 2024 in review before we kind of zoom out a little bit later in this podcast, he played every game last year, 162. That's a rarity in today's game. He and Matt Olson basically were just always there for the Braves. But a 154 WRC plus, almost a 5-win player, again, while DHing. He did cool off a little bit late, as you already referenced. He was still fine late. He just wasn't quite like superstar level in September. I don't know about you. I'm not worried about that. Like it was like some sort of predictor of the future doom for Marcell. I think he was probably just due for some regression. But look, even when he was bad, and he was for a year and a half, he just hits the ball so hard. And that's the thing about Marcell Ozuna is that, even before after the Braves, he always had this great StatCast profile. Alex and company they're suckers for StatCast profiles. They love guys that hit the ball hard. And Marcell is like arguably the number one case of that. He just hits the ball really, really hard all the time. Elite data, exit velocities, barrel rates, all the stuff that nerds talk about. Marcell does it. He just smashes the baseball.
Yeah. I got to say, man, even the biggest Marcel Ozuna fan on the earth, as recently as the first month of the 2023 season, would anyone have seen this option being such a no-brainer for the Braves?
It's no, absolute. Just no is the answer.
No.
Anyone that says yes is lying to you.
Yeah. And this stat actually blew my mind. Okay. So we all know what happened with Marcell Ozuna down in Miami in May 2023. It basically saved and resurrected his career because people were calling for him to be cut or DFA'd or traded for a bag of peanuts and a lemonade.
By the way, just to be very clear, people included us. We were doing that as well. So we're not abstaining here. We did that.
Yeah, well. We did a weekly segment on when are the Braves going to cut Marcell Ozuna because that's how bad it was. And flash forward. So since the start of May 2023, Marcell Ozuna has a 155 WRC plus. Okay. 155. These are the players who have hit better than Marcell Ozuna since last May. Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, Yordan Alvarez, and Mookie Betts.
End of list.
That's it.
Not Freddie Freeman, not Matt Olson, not Austin Riley. Name your favorite player, not Bryce Harper. Pick your guy. That's the whole list. 5 guys, and they're all super duper stars.
Yes. Judge, Ohtani, Soto, Alvarez, and Betts. Those players combined make about $2.3 billion, Brad. Billion.
Billion with a B.
And I'm not saying that Marcell Ozuna is the same player as any of those guys because obviously he's different. He's in the back 9 of his career and all of that. But again, man, even the most optimistic, the Braves are amazing, Marcell Ozuna is amazing fan on planet Earth would tell you that he was about to become a legitimate top 6 hitter in baseball for the better part of 2 full seasons. I mean, talk about resurrecting your career and just coming back from the dead because it's just been so impressive since that turnaround. And again, man, other than a couple of down final weeks of the season, Marcell was just absolutely mashing the baseball all year long.
Hey, Valentine's Day is coming up, and we have the recommendation for you to check out right now. Don't wait. It's 1-800-Flowers.com. This year, we're partnering with 1-800-Flowers to make sure you're a Valentine's legend with an exclusive offer for the FT fam. It's double the roses for free. When you buy 1 dozen, they're going to double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. It's the perfect way to wow her without breaking the bank. 1-800-Flowers always delivers. Let them dominate this holiday. It's what they do best.
Think about everyone in your fam that deserves some love on Valentine's Day. I sent a bouquet to my daughter at college, and it lit up her day. I also added an awesome vase to the order for her, so she's got it all.
All roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak, cared for every step of the way, and shipped fresh to ensure lasting beauty. Don't wait. Think ahead this year. Make it easy and get that deal right now. When you order 1 dozen, they'll double the rose bouquet for free. That's the FT deals that we're always looking out for. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/FT. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/FT.
For sure. And one more way to frame that as far as like how good he's been in that sample size. And he joined the Braves prior to 2020. He had a MVP level season in 2020 as well. He was unbelievable that year. It was a shortened season, but he was great that season. Yep. But in 5 seasons, 2 of them were disastrously terrible. And we're not going to relitigate. It's been a few years now. But if you don't believe me, Marcell Ozuna, by the numbers, was a bottom 10 player in all of baseball over a 2-year period. That is how bad he was. That's not us making that up. The stats say that he was that bad for 2 seasons. And then, as you just alluded to, it went into April of the next year. It was 2+ seasons. But I say all that. He was terrible for 2 years. He's still, in 5 seasons with the Braves, has a 131 WRC plus in more than 2,200 plate appearances. Do you know how good you have to be in the other 3 years to negate 2 seasons as bad as his 2 seasons were and still have a 131? Because 131 WRC plus is a star. Like at DH, it's not quite like, crazy because you're not providing defensive value. But we'll do this later on the show. If Marcell just gave his quote unquote career Braves mark this year it'd be a lot worse than it was last year, and it would still be very, very good, and we would love it. Like 131 WRC+ this season would be a great outcome for Marcell Ozuna. That's his 5-year performance with the Braves, even including 2 terrible seasons. So he's been so good in the other 3 years. And if you want to throw, like, I am okay now, probably just like ignoring what happened from 2020 to 2022 on the field for the most part, because now you have a 2-year sample of him being back to a star player.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's as good as look, I don't know if this is going to be controversial. I'm not sure. I don't know that he's actually as good as he has been since May 2023 because of what you just said. He is not Yordan Alvarez. He is not, especially Soto, Judge, Ohtani. I don't think. But I mean, it is 2 years of a sample. It's not like it's not 100 plate appearances. It's like 1,000 plate appearances. He's been that good for that long.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the numbers back it up. And sure, I mean, no one's going to sit here with a straight face and say, Aaron Judge or Marcel Ozuna, who's the face of baseball on the East Coast? Like, of course not. Or
not even that. That made me laugh. But yeah, I it's weird, and I know why it's happened. And look, the off-field stuff is a topic that's always out there. It's always there. Yeah. It's never going to go away.
Yep.
But I almost think that because of all of that, and because of how bad he was for 2 years, it is underrated how good he has been the last 2 years, which is why we're leading with that. Just from a pure baseball, pure hitting standpoint, here are the numbers. Like, if you polled even Braves fans who watch every game of every season, even the absolute diehards, I don't know if they would understand quite how good he's been the last 2 years. And I think that's why I wanted to leave with that. So
I was surprised. I mean, I knew he was a really good hitter, but when I was doing research for this episode, even I was like, wait a minute. Did I move my dates wrong, or did I exclude certain players or do something wrong on the leaderboards? No. I mean, you don't believe me? Go on Fangraphs, search since.
If you want to do the normie thing too, I'm realizing now that we actually didn't say like his like normie numbers, because people, there's always baseball fans that don't like WRC+, they don't want the advancement. I get all that. Here are the back of the baseball card stats for Ozuna in the last 2 years. He hit 40 home runs in 23 and 39 home runs in 24. So he's averaged 39 and a half home runs the last 2 years. That's pretty good.
Yeah, very good math.
He's also slugged 552 in those 2 seasons. That's pretty good. Even batting average, which doesn't really matter to me, 289. And 289 in the modern game is like a borderline elite batting average. That's like really, really good.
Hey, the name of the game is to hit the baseball. And I agree. People who go, well, he's a 300 hitter and he's a 270 hitter. The 300 hitter is such a better player. Of course not. And I think most fans know that it's not as simple as that.
Most fans know, but some people just like that. It is what it is. But 916 OPS, if you want to use that number, which is probably pre-recognizable, all the numbers across the board. One sneaky thing that I actually want to mention that was a little bit different, and I think it's been at least partially responsible for his resurgence, he's walking again. When he was in the wilderness in that 2-year period, he stopped walking. He had a 6% walk rate in 2022, which is like better than Ozzy and better than Michael Harris, but like that's not a good walk rate. You don't want to walk at 6%. Since then, it was 9.5% in 2023 and about 11% last year. Part of that's that he's mashing, so guys are pitching around him, but being selective is not a small. And Marcel's not afraid to swing. Like, he is someone that will go up there and take some big old hacks. That's how you hit the ball as hard as he does. And you'll look bad sometimes, but he has been sneakily and I think quietly more selective, and taking walks really helps your overall profile too.
Yeah. And I think what's really impressive about Marcel's, just you said back of the baseball card numbers, there's nothing fluky here.
No,
like truly nothing. I mean, the batted ball data is fantastic. He hits the ball so hard, exit velocities, barrel rates. He elevates and drives the ball. There's nothing, at least when I was looking at his profile, to make me go, no, that's a little concerning, or there's a real reason for drop-off impending, other than the fact that Marcel is getting a little bit older is probably the one concern. But there's also a long history in Major League Baseball of guys like Nelson Cruz, for example, kind of DH-only types who just continue to mash the baseball into their late 30s because, you know what? They're going up to the batter's box 4 times a game. They're not being asked to play defense. They just go up there. They swing hard. They hit the baseball really hard. They draw walks, and they end up being one of the better hitters in the game. And clearly the Braves, after a pretty disastrous first 2 years of this now 5-year contract, it's paid off in spades. And, he has one role on this team, and Marcel does it very well.
So looking ahead a little bit to 2025, you mentioned the age. That is, I think, it is a concern. I'm not saying I'm terrified of the age, but when you're 34, like as he is now, and you do rely on the fact that he has really good bat speed, like I think there's a possibility that when it ends for Marcel, it might go quickly. That'd be my only concern, really, is that like the profile is, and obviously he provides nothing else. He's a DH only player that really relies on his power. I think he'll be good this year. Don't get me wrong, but there's more downside risk when you're 34, and you do have he has some swing and miss. He always has. Like that's not a problem when you're mashing the ball the way he does. But he'll strike out a decent amount for sure. And he can't run, for instance. Like he's gonna have to hit the ball hard for it to work. And at 34, like it could go. But you're right. There is a history of guys in this role. He's not like the most fine-tuned machine of an athlete, I don't think. But he is really strong, and I think he keeps himself in decent shape. So yeah, I'm not particularly worried about super downside. 2025 though, obviously the option was picked up for the Braves. We talked about that earlier. He's projected to be worse than he was the last 2 years, which makes sense. Like if you're Dan Zaborski at Zips or Depth Chart for Steamer, you're not going to have Ozuna at 150 WRC plus in a projection at age 34. There's all those models, by the way, they're taking into account age, history, all that stuff. And until he got to Atlanta, he was a good hitter, but he was not this level of hitter. So all that said, what are you thinking? Because Fangraphs right now has the Braves number 6 at DH in baseball. Most teams, again, don't have one guy at DH. Last year, the Dodgers had Ohtani at DH all year because he couldn't throw the baseball. But most guys who have and maybe some Yordan Alvarez. But I thought about today, like there are not that many guys in baseball who are like pure DHs who are as good as Ozuna has been. Like it's very, very small list, which is why there's some noise in that projection. But even then, number 6 in baseball is pretty good. But what do you think? What's a reasonable projection? Because my mind won't let me say this is 100% real in the last 2 years. It's like it almost has to come down, but it doesn't have to come down. Like you can do this again, but I wouldn't project it, is what I would say.
Sure. Yeah, projections are nuanced and balanced and stats driven for a reason. But I think a year ago, if you would have asked you or me, if you would have walked up to Brad Rowland on the street and said, "Hey, is Marcel Ozuna going to repeat his 2023?"
Nope.
I think the analyst in you would have said, "No, probably not." And correct. What did he do? But he repeated. And
he was better.
He was
somehow.
Better.
Yeah.
So again, the difference between 33 and now 34 years old, it's not a dramatic, obviously you're just talking about 6 months since Marcel was last on a baseball field. If you had to ask me today, when we're recording 123 WRC plus, I would take the over on that. I think it's tough to just say, yes, no doubt, no questions asked. Marcel is going to be a Triple Crown front runner again and have a 950 OPS and bat 300, because that's probably a little reckless. But if you're telling me that this time in the year we're talking about Marcel having close to a 900 OPS again, or even above 850, and driving in 1 million runs in the middle of this order and hitting for power, I think that's absolutely within the range. And at some point, Father Time is going to knock on that door, but I don't think it's going to be 2025.
Yeah, I certainly, again, it's part of the way I'm wired. I will project some regression from last year. But again, you're 100% right. If you asked me that, I would have been wrong last year. So I might be wrong again. His career numbers are kind of where I might be for this year. Like an OPS in like the low 800s with about 30-ish home runs has been his like career number average. That's really good, by the way, but it would not be what he's been the last 2 years. I think maybe, I don't know. Yeah, like what you said, maybe like an 850 OPS, WRC plus in like the 130 range, 135 range, 30 homers instead of 40 homers. And that's still like great hitter that's in the middle of your lineup every day that you love to have there. If I had to guess, Marcel will never have a season again as good as he was last year, because last year was his second best season overall and his best season in a full 162. He was better in 2020 in a 60 game season. So like there's an asterisk on that one to some degree. We'll see.
Yeah. And I mean, the 2020 season was just so bizarre. I mean, baseballs were
he was unbelievable too. He was unbelievable that
out
season.
of his mind. I know we were so starved for sports in 2020 and all that, but I mean, just such a silly baseball season. And there's the famous clip, I think it's Michael Conforto of the Mets back then, and he like slammed his bat down because he thought he just missed a ball and ended up going to the upper deck of Citi Field.
It's like
those were the baseballs we were using back then, so it was a hitter's paradise. But
he led. By the way, he led baseball. That is what we'll trip through time. He led the major leagues in home runs, RBI, total bases. He was second in OPS. He actually was number one in plate appearances, which is a little bit weird when you are a middle of the order hitter. But he played in every game, which is why that is. But like, just to say that, like, he was unbelievable that year. But yeah, my point is, I don't think he's going to ever be as good as he was last year. But that doesn't mean he can't be awesome. Like those are not mutually exclusive terms. Like I think last year was probably going to be his best season of all time. I say probably, not definitely, probably. But yeah, he'll be good again. I think he's a top 5 DH in baseball. There's going to be a question that this is not for this episode, but there is a real question and a topic about what the Braves do with him beyond this year. If he has a good season, it's going to be a very interesting negotiation decision.
Yeah,
all of that, because he is a DH only player, and it does limit you in terms of flexibility and all of that. But he has mashed, and by all accounts, the guys like him in the locker room, all that stuff. It all matters.
We should mention. I mean, you want to talk about a player who has rehabbed his whole everything. Yeah. I mean, the Braves players. You can't spend 5 minutes with a current Brave without talking about how important Marcell Ozuna is in that clubhouse. And the work he does with the hitters. I know he's talked. Matt Olson has talked about how Marcel helped get him out of a funk last season and helped him with his swing. And I know, especially among the Latin players, Ozzy Albies, Ronald Acuna, like those guys look up to Marcel, and that's not a small thing in the clubhouse. I mean, you mentioned that Marcel is a free agent this time in a year. I wouldn't be surprised if mid-season, if all is going well, that the Braves probably approach Marcel similar to what they did with Travis d'Arnaud and Charlie Morton a couple years back with those in-season extensions to keep him in town. And again, I don't think anyone on earth thought that was a possibility as recent as a couple years ago, but He has absolutely been worth every single penny of this contract. And even if Marcel comes down a bit from last year when he was just so good, again, man, there's a lot of wiggle room for him to be a really successful player. And who knows, maybe the rest of the lineup being better in 2025 will make Marcel an even better hitter. The protection behind him. If he has somebody who can actually hit, whether it's Michael Harris or Jurickson Profar, or if Sean Murphy decides to hit the baseball again, I mean, that's only going to help Marcel get more pitches to hit. And again, I think short of something really weird happening, I have a hard time seeing this upcoming season going poorly.
Yeah, we should say, at least talk about this for 5 seconds about what happens if he gets hurt. He's been healthy. I mentioned before he played every game last year. DH is a little bit easier to project because everyone could go there. Like they could just rotate up in that position. The Braves have 2 very obvious DH candidates that are not Marcell Ozuna. One is Ronald Acuna, because obviously he could play right field, but he's a hitter first and he's coming off an injury. So if Ozuna was not in, we'll save this mostly for Ronnie's episode, but there is a potential early in the year that Ozuna might have some nights that he's not playing, which sounds crazy, but they might want to have Ronnie DH on occasion, and there's nowhere to put Marcel. So it's actually an interesting decision they have to make. But in the event, as we did with Olson and Riley, what happens if he gets hurt? Like, is it Profar? Is it Ronnie? Like mixture of both? What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's not really. Well, let me say this: it is a problem if Marcel gets hurt because of how good of a hitter he
Because
is.
he's good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But obviously, DH is by far the easiest spot in the lineup to fix. You could do Acuna there. You could put Profar there and have Kelnick play one of the corners.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, if Drake Baldwin is killing it in AAA, you could call up Drake Baldwin to be your DH and rotate occasionally with Sean Murphy. I mean, you could put anyone there. You could give Austin Riley a breather. You could give Matt Olson a breather.
Which again, most teams do that to some degree, where they do use it either as a rotation or they have a platoon there or something. It's not usually just one guy. It's just that Marcel is capable of only doing that and also hitting at a level where you have to play him there. But yeah, I think that it'd be easy to fix. Or if it's knock on wood, if it's season ending or something like that, you just go you go trade for somebody who is a pure hitter. Like, it's not like you have to worry about them playing defense. Jorge Soler might be available.
I was gonna say, do you hear that? Is that Jorge Soler's music coming from Anaheim that's suddenly making its way to Atlanta?
Wow, they suddenly have Travis d'Arnaud and Jorge Soler in a trade midseason. That's bizarre. No, I mean we're kind of kidding, but not. But yeah, I think that if we're doing this for every episode of these, so that's why I'm asking the question. But this is the easiest one. It's like, all right, obviously it would be brutal to lose the bat, but they could just plug it in pretty easily. Profar, honestly, is kind of a DH too. Like, he's not a great defender in left field. He's better than Marcel. Oh, while we're here, can we just do the Marcel's not playing defense anytime soon thing? Because like every year we get asked, every month we get asked, can he play left field? I think the Braves have told us now with their actions over the last year plus the answer that they believe the answer is no. Yeah, so
it would have to be a very, very weird situation for Marcel to grab an outfielder's glove. I do think he's probably what the Braves would do at first base if, knock on wood, Matt Olson got hurt for any period.
Or Profar, now that Profar's played, he's played there too. Like, I think pre-Profar, it was very obviously going to be Marcel at first. If Matt Olson got hurt, they might put Profar there now, I think. Only because they have Kelnick. Because, like, in theory, Kelnick is better than their other options at those positions. Like, it's like, all right, we have Jared Kelnick, plug him in every day. Like, but you're right. Ozuna has taken reps in the spring in particular at first base. Matt Olson is Iron Man among Iron Men, knock on wood, of course. So we haven't ever seen it in a real game that mattered. But in the spring, they do give him a first baseman glove and say, Marcel, just go field some grounders. Do something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure Marcel will play a couple games in the spring at first. Never hurts to get the reps. But in terms of the outfield, no. I mean, if it was like the 13th inning and two players have gotten hurt, then, I mean, hell, anybody could go stand out there. Chadwick Tromp could go stand in left field with a glove if he had to. But
I have never seen Chadwick Tromp play anywhere but catcher. And right now, Scott, I am confident he's better than Ozuna in left field. He's probably I don't know if he's ever played there in his entire life. And I just blindly would say he's better than Ozuna.
I think, and then we'll move on because this is a silly where it's a tangent.
But it comes out. It does come up though. Every time we do a session about Marcel, it's like, well, how bad can he be? And then look, my thing is always look at what teams are telling you with what they're doing, with their deployment. As bad as Jorge Soler was, and they told you what they thought about Jorge Soler's defense, they still played him in left with Ozuna on the team. So they thought he was better than Ozuna defensively. And he was so bad that they couldn't keep him on the roster. So what's that say about Ozuna's defense?
Right.
He's worse. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe never have to live a Marcel or a Jorge Soler adventure in the outfield ever again. But yeah, I think the synopsis, Marcel Ozuna, fantastic DH, see baseball, hit baseball, score a lot of runs. That is very much the motto for his 2025. And hopefully he can get even close to what he did last season when he was just so good.
We strongly agree there. And like I said, it'll be a topic all year long. If he is not extended, if he is mashing, it will give us some fodder to discuss how they're going to handle that going into the winter. But that's a future Brad, future Scott problem, as they say.
Great reason to subscribe and follow along if you don't already, because when we do that episode in August, we do the reaction episode that they just extended Marcel. Then it'll be in your feeds at a moment's notice. You like that professional tease there?
Listen, if you want to do all the teases and transitions from now on, I'm actually happy for you to do that because I not my best thing in the world either. But no, Scott, you're the best. Everyone should be subscribing to Hammer Territory. You can follow Scott Coleman also on social media at Scott Coleman 55. Is that correct, my friend?
That is correct. Scott Coleman 55 on socials.
Follow Scott. Follow me if you want to at BT Rowland across social media platforms. You can follow the show at Hammer Territory. We are only half of the show, the two of us. We also have Stephen Tolbert and Sean Coleman, our colleagues. You will hear from them as well on the same feed. Please subscribe on Apple and Spotify, as well as YouTube, etc. We appreciate you listening to the show. Stay tuned, and we'll have more coming up, I'm sure, very, very soon on this feed. And we'll see you all next time.